NFL Live is presented by KFC.
It's a New Year's Day edition of NFL Live, and here's our timeline this afternoon. Our Adam Schefter tweeting this morning. A source says former Dolphins head coach Adam Gase is scheduled to interview with the Arizona Cardinals as early as Wednesday. Hello there, and happy to have you with us. Happy New Year to all of you. Wendy Nix, Dan Graziano, and Coach John Fox. We hope your 2019 is off to a great start. The playoffs are about to start, and now we know, gentlemen, who heads where to play whom. Take a look at what is, I think, the best weekend in football. The regular season is over, and we've set our sights on Wild Card Weekend. The 4 matchups are set. Colts and Texans, Seahawks, Cowboys, Chargers, Ravens, Eagles, Bears. We'll break down each of these games as we make our way through the next 90 minutes. But first, a team that did not make the playoffs but is making headlines nonetheless. Steelers quarterback Ben Roethlisberger said he has no issue with Antonio Brown. In fact, he didn't see the reported bad behavior from the All-Pro receiver last week. Our sources say Brown went off on a teammate during the week and missed a number of practices and team meetings before and after Sunday's win over the Cincinnati Bengals. Here's the reported timeline of how this happened. Antonio Brown had a dispute during the team's normal morning walkthrough. This was on Wednesday. Ben Roethlisberger said to have been some part of that. Brown opted to sit out practice the rest of the week, showed up to the stadium on Sunday expecting to play, but was told not so fast. He was on the injury report with a knee injury that reportedly had no impact on the Steelers' decision to sit Antonio Brown. Here is the quarterback, Ben Roethlisberger, on the report.
What happened in practice on Wednesday that set this off?
Well, that's the kind of baffling thing to me is people are making a big deal about a walkthrough on Wednesday that there was a blow-up, a fight between he and I. I don't know anything about that. If there was a blow-up or something, I sure as heck didn't see it. I consider it to be one of my closest friends on the team, so I'm not really sure why or where some of this blow-up is coming from. I've reached out to him numerous times. I've called him, texted him. I know other guys on the team have too, and haven't heard back from him. But Thursday morning, he and I talked, and there was no issue, so I'm not really sure.
Well, Jeremy Fowler joins us now from Pittsburgh. So, Jeremy, if the Steelers' New Year's resolution was less drama, we're going to have to look ahead to 2020 already. I'll ask you this. What is the latest today?
Well, Wendy, you know how it is in Pittsburgh, of course. Now, I spoke to a source that said they had no knowledge of any sort of Antonio Brown trade request, so nothing has been done, at least formally, but frustration seems to be mounting with the All-Pro receiver, and no major decisions are being made today as far as his future or anything else because the team is basically off for New Year's Day. The Steelers' headquarters is a ghost town, but things will pick back up tomorrow when coaches and players start to filter back into the building, and Mike Tomlin has a noon press conference to recap the season. Surely this will be a primary topic of discussion. Now, considering Brown's status as one of the game's best, his quarterback has come out in strong support of Brown, and cutting him would include dead money of more than $20 million because of his bloated contract. Chances are still good that Brown will be in a Steelers uniform next year, but just in case, I spoke to a high-ranking AFC source. They said, I hope Antonio Brown is on the trading block.
I'm sure there are a number of teams who would say exactly that. Jeremy, thank you. Everybody has an opinion on this. We know it's happened before. Ryan Clark, among those who also had some thoughts on Antonio Brown's situation.
Antonio has been a guy who's been a me guy. He's been a guy who is self-centered in a way where he cares about the individual stats, how I'm being treated, how I'm being perceived or portrayed. But the one player you can't have infighting with is Ben Roethlisberger. And you hear more about him, some things that we don't need to bring up now. But when it comes to just being a good teammate, when it comes to just being supportive, to understanding that you're trying to achieve one goal, that doesn't matter to him. What matters to him is 19 attempts, 14 catches, 185 yards, 2 touchdowns against the Saints. That's what's important to Antonio Brown. This is where Mike Tomlin has to put his foot down and shop Antonio Brown. Juju Smith-Schuster has shown you he can be a number one. Ben Roethlisberger speaks glowingly of James Washington. But this is about the fabric of the team. This is about the guy that goes Facebook Live as your coach is talking and leaks information outside the locker room that never should be there. This is about the guy that publicly talks about not getting the ball or issues with the offense coordinator, knocks over garbage cans or knocks over Gatorade bottles and cans because he doesn't get the rock. At some point, when you're an organization that's built on team, organization that's built on integrity, you have to show the rest of the locker room that. And will he be good going forward? Probably so. but you have to take that stand. It's time for him to go.
Brian Clark extremely clear on this one. And look, what he did also make clear is that this isn't the first time we've seen this. He is absolutely correct that there's been a timeline of events with Antonio Brown. We pulled out the panic button for good reason. When I say that, you might not need it. I'll ask you, I don't know, we'll ask. Panic or patience on Antonio Brown's future with the Steelers?
You want me?
You're closest here to the button.
I'm going to say I don't need the button. I'm going to say be patient.
Right.
I think, first of all, trading him would be almost impossible economically because it would be a $21 million salary cap hit for the Steelers to trade him. So to have that cap charge for guys not on your team, very difficult pill to swallow. I just think the Steelers deal with this stuff. I mean, they deal with it all the time. You mentioned there's always Steelers drama. This is an off-season issue. It's entirely possible it'll blow over by OTAs, minicamp. There's plenty of time for that. I think the problem here is the losing. There's always this drama going on in Pittsburgh with people not necessarily getting along, maybe people out for their own agendas, but they're able to bring it together and win and make the playoffs all the time. This year they didn't, and I think that frustration reaches new levels.
But that's a huge asterisk, right? I mean, there's a huge difference between handling this stuff and keeping it in-house when you're winning football games and going to the playoffs. And, Coach, you know this all too well. That changes dramatically when you fall short of expectations the way the Steelers did in 2018.
Well, no doubt it was an up-and-down season, and it ended up down. But I think, if in fact there was any kind of disruption, I'm going to go say patient.
I didn't even need that.
Yes, yeah, I didn't need it either. But if, Mike Tomlin did the right thing. If he sat him because of that, I don't know this to be true, but if there was a problem, he did sit him. They did take care of business. They beat the Cincinnati Bengals and did their part to get in the playoffs, what they could handle on that final weekend. The fact that the team's checked out now, everybody's gone through the offseason, I think this blows over. And, Antonio Brown is definitely a big part of that offense, 104 catches and 15 touchdown passes.
Well, there's no question he's been productive. He's been on a tear since 2013. Antonio Brown has the most receptions and receiving yards of any player over that 6-year span in NFL history.
We did lose our way for a minute.
Drilled by Von Miller. Ball is loose.
It was hard to hear the ugly truth about some things at times, but sometimes the truth is also beautiful.
Reaching out, making a catch. John Baldwin. How in the world did he catch it?
They've committed to this formula offensively, and that was what Pete wanted.
10, 5, touchdown! Seahawks. Welcome back, John Baldwin.
They're a scary team going into the playoff.
Well, from one receiver to another. First, though, Seattle heads on the road. They'll face the Cowboys, their second playoff meeting, with the other coming back in the 06 wild card, a game infamous for that Tony Romo botched field hold on a late 19-yard field goal, which ultimately meant the end of that game. Seattle looks to contain Ezekiel Elliott, who finished as the NFL's leading rusher for the second time in 3 NFL seasons. And with that, we'll say hello to Seahawks wide receiver Doug Baldwin. And Doug, let's just start, before we talk about the actual matchup, with the fact that this team finished 6-1 and what that momentum can mean as you head into the postseason.
Yeah, I mean, everything is clicking, all the cylinders are running, and we've got a lot of momentum going into the playoffs. I think that most importantly right now is us getting healthy and getting ready for this game in terms of our preparation. And putting all the pieces together so we can make this run in the tournament. You've
already beaten the Cowboys once this season. Does that matter at all as you prepare to face them again?
Maybe to the naked eye. Obviously, there's some human nature in there, thinking that you've already beat this team, you've already matched up with them pretty well. But going into this tournament, obviously, everything changes. On any given Sunday, this is an NFL team, so we have to respect them as such. And so we will prepare like it's a new team, but obviously look at the game that we played and see what we did well and try to carry that over.
Doug, what's interesting to me about this particular Seattle team is that the expectations were different. We all said maybe it's not the same defense as the last few years. Maybe it's a rebuilding type of year. What's the mindset of this team as a group that sort of exceeded expectations, if you will?
Well, it's a young team, first and foremost. So a lot of the guys don't even know what they don't know. And so they're going in just having fun and enjoying the process as it comes to them. And so, really, that's what it comes down to. We're having fun. It's new territory for a lot of guys. And so we're just playing football and see where we land.
Can't that be an advantage sometimes? It's one thing we say, oh, they don't have the postseason experience. But you know what? if you don't know and you don't take on the extra pressure and you don't take on what everybody else is saying, can that sort of that young or that ignorance, if you will, be an advantage?
Absolutely. Just like you said, it's kind of not having that expectation, not having that pressure, but also going in as the underdog and people saying all those things about you. So again, our team is young and they've approached it in a number of different ways this year, but all have been positive and all have been progressive in the terms of us being successful and actually getting into the playoffs. And so I have no doubt that we'll have the right mindset when we go up against Dallas this weekend.
On an individual note, you've had to deal with some injuries. They've started at the start of the season and lingered off and on. How are you? How is your health right now?
As best as it can be for a Tuesday in January.
Fair enough. A Tuesday in January, enough said, just like everybody else, and we know nobody's going to give you any excuses. Russell Wilson's deep ball, one of the strongest, but so is your route running. Does that connection between the two of you just continue to get stronger each season?
It has. I think, I got to give a lot of credit to Russell because he's been impeccable with his deep throws, not only just to myself, but to David Moore and to Tyler Lockett. I think him and Tyler Lockett actually this year have a perfect QBR rating together. So a lot of the credit goes to Russell and just his ability to be a dynamic thrower, especially when he's throwing the ball deep.
Is he the best deep ball artist in the game?
It's hard to argue against it. I would say that he's up there. You got to give him his due. He's been phenomenal when he's thrown the ball deep, and I think that it's very hard for anybody else to match up against him when he does throw it deep.
Doug, you referenced some of that youth, and much of it comes on this defense. We all sort of said our goodbyes, if you will, to the Legion of Boom, and we welcomed in a new group. What did you think about your defense heading into the season, and how does that compare with what you think now?
Well, there was a lot of questions heading into the season, and obviously losing a lot of the guys that we had, Hall of Fame type players, there were some questions, and there were some roles and some shoes that had to be filled. But just like anything else, it's the next guy up. You look forward to the younger guys stepping up in their place and really demonstrating who they are as football players and as men. And they've done that, and they've answered the call, and they've faced any challenge that's been thrown at them, and they've been getting better. And I think you see in this last game that they've stand up and answered the call when we needed them to and played an outstanding game last week.
They sure did, and I think you also have to give some credit to your head coach. He's 67 years old, although you'd certainly never know it. He's got a contract extension. What kind of tone does Pete Carroll set for this team, Doug?
Well, his tone is consistent week in and week out, day in and day out, and it's just the enthusiasm that he brings. It's the tenacity within that enthusiasm. It's infectious, and it's really impressive because it's nonstop. For him to be 67 years old and still have that energy I ask him all the time, I need to know his secret. He needs to tell me his secret because it's impressive. And that's what he brings to our team, and we follow behind him because he's always going to lead that way.
You and me both. Please share if you happen to find out. I could use some myself. We want to end on a high note.
I'll let you know.
Okay. What else is infectious, I have to say, is some of these celebrations we've seen, and I feel like you're always involved, even if you weren't part of the score. What do you have choreographed or planned for the postseason? Can you give us a little hint?
Of course not. Come on, man.
Come on.
It's a surprise.
Nothing. All right. Well, take me through your favorite celebration of the season then, at least since that's already said and done. Do you have
that one right there?
That's come on.
The one that you just saw. We put a lot of work in that, a lot of effort in that, and it's just it's us having fun together as a unit. Receivers on this team going in to every game knowing that we're going to run first offense. We run the ball more than any other team. We want to celebrate those opportunities when we get a chance, and that's what we do.
All right, fair enough. We hope you get to celebrate in the coming days. Doug, we appreciate the time on a busy week. Happy New Year.
Thanks. Yeah, Happy New Year to you too.
Well, we know, we went into the weekend saying who's going where, what will we see, who makes the postseason, if so, where do they travel to? What's your confidence level of the Seahawks team on the road? Because they do head, I guess, east to face Dallas.
Yeah. Well, Dallas 7-1 at home, so, the confidence in the Cowboys at home is pretty strong.
Sure.
But as a road team, the Seahawks handle that as well as anybody. And when they went to London earlier this year, there was coverage about the program they had in place in terms of maintaining their sleep schedule, their hydration schedule. Most teams do this stuff, but the Seahawks have done it for a while, and the program's been in place, and they talk about it very proudly, how they're able to keep things the same when they go on the road, how they're a team that, unlike a lot of West Coast teams, has a pretty decent record in the early start, the 1 o'clock Eastern time starts in the East Coast games. A lot of West Coast teams struggle with that. The Seahawks under Pete Carroll historically have not. So I think it just gets to the issue of the broader program. I mean, this was supposed to be a rebuilding year for the Seahawks.
Right,
they end up
exactly.
in the playoffs. And, you know, having been in their training camp and talking to them about that, what you heard was, look, we believe in doing things a certain way here. That's not going to change just because the people have. And I think as we're in this, you know, season of hiring and firing coaches, it's worth paying attention to, you know, a coach that's been there a very long time and runs a very successful program, and the importance of continuity and longevity and how it pertains in these situations.
I would totally agree. And Pete Carroll joined us on NFL Live at the Combine. And, you know, Coach, you coaches sometimes say things. They're mostly true. Right. But, you know, we did get the sense that he did mean what he was saying, that we have a program, we have a system, and we are confident that while we've lost some great talent, we can continue to do things in a successful way. I'm not altogether shocked that they've had the season they had.
Oh, neither am I. You know, Pete Carroll's been around for a long time, not just with the Seattle Seahawks, but in coaching, and does a tremendous job. And really, my hat's off to what the kind of job Pete's done, especially with that defense. You know, Ken Norton Jr., his defensive coordinator, his defensive staff, and the leadership on that football team. You know, you heard from Doug, and he referred to Russell. You know, what they've done on offense has been incredible, but the job they've done on defense, and Bobby Wagner's really been kind of the ringleader of that group and done an outstanding job bringing those young players along. And they're playing as good as defense as anybody. I mean, they start off slow, so statistically, yard-wise, they're not doing great, but they're second in turnover ratio. They're fifth in the red area. You know, they've done a tremendous job doing the things it takes to win football games.
Well, we joked that they've gone from the Legion of Boom to the Legion of Whom, but we'll certainly know their names now. I mean, it doesn't take long when you start having the kind of success we're seeing, and certainly should they make a run here, and they can. They are. And I heard someone say they are a scary team once this tournament begins.
Yeah, Russell Wilson makes you a scary team.
He sure
He's
does.
Never out of the game.
You know what else is scary? Phillip Rivers' trash talk, it turns out. Such a nice guy. I don't understand, but you know what? We'll explain coming up.
Oh, quick crime! Quick crime!
You'll see it when he's mad, and he'll unstrap the glove, he unstraps the helmet, he throws the glove.
NFL Live is presented by KFC's $3 Famous Bowl. Try it spicy. And in part by H&R Block. In person or online, Block has your back. To NFL Live, presented by KFC.
Well, as we mentioned before, it will be Seattle who hits the road. They'll face Dallas, the second playoff meeting, the other back in 2006 for a wild card matchup. If you remember, the Tony Romo botched hold on a late 19-yard field goal that appeared to decide this one. Seattle looking to contain Ezekiel Elliott. He is NFL's leading rusher for the second time in 3 NFL seasons. Todd Archer covers the Cowboys. He joins us now. And Todd, let's start there with Ezekiel Elliott. He'll be well rested heading into this one, and he'll need to be. To say the Cowboys have struggled against that Seahawks defense in recent meetings is an understatement.
Yeah, Wendy, we just got out of the locker room, just talked to Ezekiel Elliott, and he said, look, normally I don't feel ready for a game until Friday or Saturday, but today I'm ready to go. So he's more than comfortable not playing in that regular season finale against the Giants, getting his body right for this playoffs, because he said, I'll probably have the highest workload I've had all season. And we know the Cowboys will lean on him. They lean him all during the regular season. And he also said this about the playoffs. I live for these moments. He's played one playoff game in his career, 2016 against Green Bay, 125 yards in that game. The Cowboys hope that Ezekiel Elliott has another moment like that Saturday against the Seahawks.
Todd, thank you. It's situations like this where that rest can really make a difference. And we know also making a difference was Amari Cooper's arrival in Dallas. It gave Dak Prescott some much-needed assistance. Cowboys wideouts averaged a league-worst 2.3 yards of separation when targeted in the first 8 weeks. This is according to NFL Next Gen Stats. Then came Amari Cooper. He debuted in Week 9, and that group averaging 3 yards of separation. That's the 4th best in the league, so you can see the difference. Dak is throwing into tight windows far less often simply because he doesn't have to. Coach, I'll just ask you straight out, though, how much confidence do you have in this Cowboys offense? Because it has been, we've seen a mixed bag at times.
No doubt, but I have a lot more confidence at home where they're 7-1 and how much better they've performed at home. I think, their ability to run the football, getting Zeke back, I think, is obviously an added boost. And I really have a strong feeling that Dak Prescott is going to step it up, and particularly at home, which I think statistically he's ahead of where he is on the road.
Yeah, I think that's the key thing is if this game was in Seattle, it would look a lot different. And I think that when the Cowboys are in their building, they really feel confident in being able to run their offense. They want to do the same thing the Seahawks want to do. They want to run it. But Ezekiel Elliott with a week off to rest, I just think, the offensive line is sort of as healthy as it's been. They obviously still don't have Travis Frederick, but I think they have a great deal of confidence in that building. We saw them pummel the Saints there, of all teams. And I think you can trust the Cowboys to get it done at home, even against a red-hot Seahawks team.
Coach, I think we make too much sometimes of the rest, don't rest, conversation or argument. But in this case, how beneficial can those extra days be for Ezekiel Elliott, given the workload not only he's seen, but to his point, that he will see over the weekend?
Well, I think kind of with the running back position, it's more the pounding than actual rest. And so taking that off of him, giving him another week to freshen up, I think is going to be huge. And it'll just add a little bit more finish to each one of those runs.
All right, the last Super Bowl winning team that featured the NFL's leading rusher was the 1998 Broncos. That was Hall of Famer Terrell Davis. Still to come on NFL Live, Andrew Luck, perhaps your comeback player of the year. He is back in the playoffs after the win over the Titans. We'll look at what the quarterback can